This is Audiovisual Lecture 4, Part 2. So we've just got done talking about stalls and the critical angle of attack, relative wind, and airflow separation. Now, in a standard stall, this presumes straight and coordinated flight. Coordinated to mean that the rudder is properly trimmed and that you're not yawing left or right or turning left or right. You're just stalling straight ahead, and both wings on either side of the airplane stall at the same time. Now, what happens if one wing stalls before the other? Well, if only one wing stalls, that wing is going to fall, right? Because only the airflow is only separating along the top of that wing. And if you have a right wing that's flying and a left wing that's not flying, the airplane's probably going to drop off on the left side, right? Well, what causes one wing to stall before the other? Well, it has to do with the speed of one wing through the air versus another. So in track and field, that some of you, I guess, may have learned in school, you have the inside and the outside lanes of the track, right? And the people on the inside of the track always start back here, and the people on the outside of the track always start up here. And the reason is that they've got to run farther because they're on the outside of the track. Let's say, just for clerical purposes, that the inside of the track is 100 feet and the outside is 200 feet. So it's twice the distance. If you both start right here, you're going to get done twice as fast as the guy on the outside, assuming you're running the same speed. So that's kind of what we've got going on in the wing. So let's suppose we're going to practice a stall, and you're approaching that point of airflow separation, and you push one of the rudder pedals. Let's say that you push the left rudder pedal. So that's causing motion about the vertical axis, so the nose of the airplane is going to yaw to the left. Well, what that's doing is that's causing one wing to be accelerated faster than another. So in this diagram, let's say you pushed the right pedal. So the airplane's going to yaw to the right. It's going to yaw in that direction. And so the left wing is going through the air faster than the right wing. Just to put this in a little bit clearer of a drawing, just to show the whole airplane. So you're yawing to the right, so the left wing is traveling faster, and what this means is that it's creating more lift, because the faster you accelerate a wing through the air, the more lift that it's going to produce. So if the left wing is producing more lift, that means that the right wing is producing less lift necessarily. So you have this yawing motion about the tail. Doing this moves the left wing faster. It's creating more lift. So what this translates to is when that airflow separation occurs, it's going to happen unequally. That means that the right wing, in that case, is going to stall first. So the right wing is the only wing that's going to drop, and the left one's going to kind of stay up there in the air. So back to spins to the left are much more common, so we're going to stick with those. So we're doing the stall again. Like I said, you push the left rudder, and the right wing is traveling faster, so it keeps flying, and the left wing stalls meanwhile. So what's going to happen from there? Well, assuming that you maintain the same conditions with the controls and you just hold everything like it is, the airplane will enter what's called a spin. Now, aerodynamically, a spin is what's called, it's an aggravated stall that results in auto-rotation. Well, what does that mean? Well, an aggravated stall, all that means is that the wing is stalled, airflow separation has occurred, but it's aggravated, which means it's not coordinated. So, like that diagram we saw, strictly speaking, the airplane should stall straight ahead, but we kicked some rudder in one direction or the other, making the airplane do this or do this, causing one of the wings to fly faster than the other and avoid stalling. So so we're approaching the stall, and you push left rudder, and the left wing stalls and drops. So you're going to enter that sort of spiraling corkscrew path down. That's the resultant auto rotation that it's talking about. Figure 116 in the Principles of Flying manual on page 130 has a pretty good diagram of a spin as far as how it's actually happening through the air. The airplane will drop, like a stall, and it'll maintain that condition. It won't get any faster. It'll stay right about its stall speed, even though you're descending. Here's the track that it's kind of following. So the bottom wing is going to stay stalled because in this bank, so here's your airplane, the wings here, it's banked. The wing that's fully stalled is traveling in a smaller circle, so it has less distance to cover. But the top wing has to cover all this distance here, so it's traveling at a faster rate. It has to because it's attached to the airplane. So it's still flying because it's moving faster and producing more lift. The bottom wing is not flying. It's completely stalled, and it's traveling in those smaller circles. So the airplane is going to fly in this sort of cone-shaped circle all the way down like so, and it's going to remain in this condition because here again, that bottom wing can't come up because it's fully stalled. The top wing can't come down because it's still flying. So that's the condition you have in a fully developed spin. You have a fairly stable rate of descent. You have a fairly constant rate of turn around each turn of the spin, and so forth. So one thing that people ask is if the airplane is dropping, you're descending about 500-600 feet per minute or so in a Cessna 172. Why doesn't how can you not have any more airspeed? I mean, you're going down. Shouldn't you pick up speed, right? Well, remember what we were talking about earlier. It has nothing to do with whether you're climbing, descending, turning, or doing what. The big thing is that the critical angle of attack has been exceeded and your airflow separation has occurred. So it's true that that the wing is pointed downwards like this as you're spinning, but when you think, the airplane is really descending like this. It's not descending forward like this, that it would be if you were cruising around and you just push the stick forward all of a sudden to go down. You'd increase speed and you'd start getting faster and faster and so forth because the wing is going through the air like this. Its angle of attack is like this one right here. It's not dependent on pitch. As long as you're meeting the air head on, that angle of attack is going to stay very low. But in the case of a spin, you're coming down on top of the air like this. So even if you're coming down, if you turn that picture up like this is your standard stall, right? So you can be coming down flat like this on top of the air, and that angle is going to stay the same, meaning it's too much of an angle and you've stalled the airplane. So that's how the airplane can remain stalled even though you're descending. So the recovery technique for a spin, the standard recovery technique is, you can remember with an acronym, P-A-R-E, or PARE. So this stands for the power, you want it idle, so a very low power setting. The ailerons, you want neutral. The rudder, full opposite of the direction of the turn. So if you're spinning to the left, full right rudder. And the elevator, you want to break the stall. So as far as breaking a stall, what we mean by that is reducing the angle of attack below that critical point. That's all that it takes to stop a stall, is to reduce the angle of attack, and you'll start flying again. So we're bringing the power to idle. We're keeping the ailerons neutral. Now, this is a very common incorrect recovery technique. Because you're banked to the left or to the right, you're banked, and that's usually what you control with ailerons. So the common tendency, the common instinct to want to do in a spin is to recover by, so we're in our spin to the left, up here, and you put the ailerons all the way over to the right, right? Well, how do ailerons work? So here are the positions if we were to do that. So we're putting the aileron on the left wing down to create more lift and raise that wing. And we're creating a spoiler effect on the top wing by raising that aileron to bring that wing down. So that's how ailerons are supposed to work. One raises a wing, the other brings one wing down, and that, brings it back level. Well, the reason it won't work in a spin is because this one is supposed to produce lift, right, to raise the wing. Well, this wing is completely stalled, so there's no lift to be produced. So all it's doing is creating drag. Up here, the whole idea is to lower the wing by creating drag. So the one wing that is producing lift, we're taking it away. So all that's going to result in this is the spin is going to get tighter. So even though we're turning the ailerons to the right, the airplane's actually going to get a little bit tighter to the left, and that's why. We're causing drag on the stalled wing, and we're taking lift away from the one wing that is producing lift. So that's what's making that situation worse. The rudder is the only thing that really has controllability in a spin as far as direction. So that's why we're using the rudder to actually stop the rotation and go to center. So that acronym, PAIR, power to idle, ailerons neutral, rudder fully opposite the direction of the turn, and the aileron to break the stall. So the elevator rather. So the elevator is what we're using because that's controlling our pitch, right? And we're going to use our pitch to lower that angle of attack to get airflow back over the wing, and then the airplane will start flying again. So just to recap that, a stall is just airflow separation over the top of the wing caused by exceeding the critical angle of attack. A spin is an uncoordinated stall such that one wing is fully stalled and the other wing is still producing lift, resulting in an unbalanced or aggravated, as aerodynamically it would be called, an aggravated condition and resulting in a downward spiral. So the second part of this is we're just going to talk a little bit about some of the left turning tendencies of airplanes. These are 4 aerodynamic factors that cause aircraft produced in the Western Hemisphere generally to turn left. And I say the Western Hemisphere just because these all depend on the propeller turning in a certain direction. So in the Western Hemisphere, most aircraft that have been produced, if you're sitting in the airplane looking forward, the propeller is going to turn clockwise, and that's what's helping to cause these left turning tendencies. So there are 4 of them: P factor, spiraling slipstream, gyroscopic precession, and torque. So the first one we're going to look at is what's called P factor. So we're sitting in the air. We're looking at the outside of the airplane rather. So we're looking at the airplane head on, and the propeller's turning like this. So we're sitting back here somewhere and standing on the outside looking at the front of the propeller. So it's turning this way. P factor is caused by a difference in thrust by the descending blade versus the ascending blade. So the propeller's turning this way, again as viewed from the outside of the airplane as we're looking at it head on. As this propeller goes down, it's at a higher angle of attack just because of the way it's twisted than the propeller blade that's going up like this. So that higher angle of attack on the propeller, and a propeller is a wing. It has an airfoil and a critical angle of attack and everything just like a wing. So the higher the angle of attack, the more lift you're producing. So a propeller on it, if you're producing more thrust on the descending blade, so here's the front of the airplane, and the propeller is going clockwise as viewed from the back. It's going like this. So the blade that's going down is producing more thrust than the blade that's ascending, which is coming up here. So more thrust on the right side of the airplane is going to make the airplane want to yaw to the left.